Hey guys, what's going on? I wanted to do a deck profile of the deck that I ran this past Friday. I'm over here in Tampa at USF, and I go to the Game Academy over here, and I go there pretty frequently. And this is the deck that I ran Friday night, and I ended up getting top 2, and I immediately decided to split because it was like 2 in the morning. But I ended up running green-red monsters, or the green-red mid-rangey kind of deck, and overall I was quite pleased with it. Looking at the creature lineup, I got the 4 Burning-Tree Emissary just because burning trees are phenomenal. They're free creatures pretty much. And in tandem with something like Domri Rade or just with Scavenging Oozes or Satyr Hedonist or something, they can just provide a board presence, and that early damage can really matter. And I got the 4 Elvish Mystics, the typical Lenoir Elves kind of thing. And it was either going to be these, or Zerta Druids, or Sylvan Carrotids, but I chose these just because I really like having the option for turn 2 Domri Rade. Just because if I'm on the play, and I can get that turn 2 Domri Rade out, I just feel like I'm in a significantly better position than my opponent. Just because I can get those creatures, and I can filter my draws out, and especially, like, I've kept hands where it's like 2 land, Elvish Mystic, Domri Rade, and like some bigger creatures. And by getting rid of those other creatures on top of my deck and filtering out my draws a little bit, it's really helped. But yeah, like the Elvish Mystics definitely help a lot with the mana fixing. And I've kept hands where I have like 1 land, Elvish Mystic, and like Burning-Tree and Satyr Hedonist and junk. And it's amazing because even though I have 1 land, the Satyr Hedonist eventually allows me to ramp up to some bigger stuff, which I'll get onto later. Next, I got some Ember Swallowers in here. They're pretty good. It's between this guy and Polukranos for the 4-drop slot, and I like this guy a lot just because his monstrosity is super relevant, especially in the mid-rangey / control matchups. Just because sometimes if you're able to get the monsters off, they literally just like can't win because they're so far behind on land already. And I can just poke him for 4. And another reason I like this guy a lot is because he has 5 toughness, and which means he can't get Mizzium Mortared. Just because I hate it when I would play like a Cockatrice Hydra or a Stormbreath Dragon, and then you'll get Mizzium Mortared the next turn or something. And it's just a little depressing. But yeah, so Ember Swallower, good guy. And of course I have the 4 Ghor-Clans. All night I was just swinging into Sylvan Carrotids, and few people would block with them after they've seen me do that the first time. So it was just free damage, killed Carrotids all day long, because usually people that are running green now, and Sylvan Carrotid's pretty much the new Farseek, people would sit behind that on turn 2, and I would have anything from an Elvish Mystic or a Satyr Hedonist or whatever, and I would love it just because I would swing, and they'd be like, "Why are you swinging?" And I'd be like, "Oh, Ghor-Clan," and then bam, 2 creatures in the graveyard. Works out for everybody. But yeah, Ghor-Clan, definitely one of the best cards in the deck. It's searchable from Domri Rade, and it's a combat trick. I love it. I have 1 Polukranos in here, and I may switch that up to 2. I'm not 100% sure how much I'm pleased with it. He's a 4-drop 5/5, and definitely puts the hurt on some aggro decks, because I played this against red deck wins, and they literally just could not get rid of it. They eventually got rid of it by 2 for 1 in themselves, and at that point it was not really in their favor to begin with. His monstrosity is a little interesting. Most of the time I would just make him around a 7/7 or so, just because turn 3 or 4 I have 4 mana, plop him out, and then next turn just bam, fight little things. And I actually misread his effect at first. I thought he fought something else, but he just deals X damage, where that's his monstrosity. So if you monstrous him for 2, he only deals 2 damage. I thought it was working up to a 7/7, and then he fights stuff, which I thought it was amazing, but turns out it's not. I realized that after a match, and I was like, oh, but my opponent didn't say anything either, but it wasn't terribly relevant at the time. I have the 4 Satyr Hedonists, and these are pretty much temporary mana dorks. And they were so good all night long, and I definitely was impressed with them. The reason these guys were so good was because they're 2/1, and definitely that's kind of nice to have a 2 power for 2. It's not terrible. And I like how you can sack him even when he's tapped, and float 3 red. And that 3 red was very helpful with the monstrosing of Ember Swallower and Stormbreath Dragon. especially because they're both 7. Because I could go like turn 1, whatever, turn 2, Burning-Tree into Satyr Hedonist, and if I don't have that third land, I can sack it, float 3, and then play Planeswalker or like whatever I need at the time. And Satyr Hedonist allows me to sack a red on turn 3 and then play a Stormbreath Dragon, which turn 3 Stormbreath Dragons are pretty powerful, and depending on which deck you're up against, it can really, really put you in the lead. And then I have the 3 Scavenging Oozes, and Scavenging Ooze is amazing. I have mixed feelings about it sometimes, just because the games that it doesn't do anything, it's kind of just a 2/2, and it's not that good. But the games that it does do stuff, it's amazing, just because it gains me that 3/4 life, and then it'll become like a 5/5 or a 6/6, and it's huge. Like, it's amazing how good Scavenging Ooze could be in times like that. And then I have my Pseudo Thundermaw Hellkite, which Stormbreath Dragon, he's the best option we got now for that kind of 5-drop. And Flying Haste, Pro White, definitely good. Can't be War Leader's Helix, which is awesome. Can't be Chain of the Rocks, which is awesome. Can't be Detention Sphere. Can't be Azorius Charmed. He's very good. 4/4 is a little bit frail because it did get Mizzium Mortared a handful of times that night. But definitely good guy. I only monstrous him once, and it did win me the game, but it was otherwise, I didn't really feel the need to monstrous him that often, just because I would be wasting all my mana, and usually I had other stuff to do. But that's my creatures. I got 27 creatures, and that works out with 4 Domri Rades. Land-based, typical. I actually changed this last minute. I should probably fix this. Last minute, I changed it from 9/7 to 8/8. Just because I would be drawing a little bit too much mountains. But nice even spread of both. I have a good amount of double red and a good amount of green, so I felt it was appropriate. And I didn't see myself getting mana screwed very often. And on the times where I would be short a red or a green, Burning-Tree Emissary definitely helped a whole bunch just by giving me that extra red or extra green. And then I have 6 Planeswalkers in the deck. I have a Chandra Pyromancer, which I just picked her up like the day of the tournament, and I was like, okay, I'll add her, because originally it was going to be a Perforos, but Perforos is really bad in this deck, I realized. But Chandra, she did well. Whenever I got her out, it was pretty nice, mainly because if they couldn't really kill her, she just kind of poked them repeatedly, and being able to make it so their creatures couldn't block allowed me to swing in with some big stuff, which is always nice. And other than that, she did okay. I really like her. And later games, she's really helpful because you can just zero her repeatedly and just get free draws. And in tandem with something like Satyr Hedonist occasionally, sometimes I'll be like, oh crap, like I'm at 4 land, but I exile the Stormbreath Dragon. And like, oh, I'll just sack Satyr Hedonist, play for free. They're not free, but next thing, 4 Domri Rade, one of the best Planeswalkers in the meta at the moment, I believe. He fights stuff, and it's really nice to be able to just have Ember Swallower out, or Polukranos, and just being able to fight stuff. And there was even times where I would just swing in with anything from a Satyr Hedonist to a Burning-Tree or something, and I Ghor-Clan it to bring it up to a 6/6, 6/5 or whatever, and then main 2, I would play a Domri Rade and have him fight, which was really helpful. I almost lost a game against Naya because like my opponent had a Polukranos out and I couldn't kill it, and it was a little depressing. But other than that, I was just able to Ghor-Clan and then fight, and it was pretty easy at that point. I have 1 Xenagos in this deck. I'm probably gonna bump it up to 2. I may take Chandra out and put her in the side for another Xenagos. Xenagos, I didn't really draw him that often, but he did win me a game just because his haste tokens were so unbelievably relevant. I'll get into it later, but I was playing Rakdos mid-range control, and the Satyr tokens having haste is what won me the game pretty much. And then to wrap it up, I got 3 Mizzium Mortar, and they're amazing. They kill pretty much everything, and with Satyr Hedonist, sacking for that 3 red allowed me to overload it pretty much every other game, I think. And it was really helpful to kill off those Carotids, because they have hexproof, but Mizzium Mortars can get past that. And I would definitely neg 1 myself for Satyr Hedonist to get rid of their mana dorks if they need it. And I look on the sideboard. This is not the current sideboard that I have, but this is what I used that night, mainly because I ordered some cards online and they didn't get there in time. So I ended up having a Pithing Needle in there. And Pithing Needle, I had in there for control, mainly because Control is probably my worst matchup, specifically Blue, White, or Esper, just because I can't deal with Supreme Verdict. I don't have Boros Charms or Rootborn Defenses to protect my creatures at all. And Pithing Needles mainly for Planeswalkers, just because I really don't like getting Ashiok to death or Jaced. That's kind of annoying. I have 2 Mistcutter Hydras for Control, just because can't get countered, haste, protection from blue, and being able to poke them with a 4/4 that they can't Azorius Charm or Detention Sphere is pretty well. And it's really nice because if they have to 1-for-1 a Mistcutter Hydra, that means I'm in a pretty good spot. Also for Control, I have 2 Ruric Thar. I never got to use him because I didn't really play any Control decks, but whenever I drew him, he was kind of dead just because I had other stuff at the time. And 6 mana, I do have 24 lands and some mana dorks, but 6 mana is sometimes a little bit difficult to get unless I have a Satyr Hedonist. And there were times where I would have him, and I'm like, I don't want to play him because I have like a Domri, a Xenagos, or Mizzium Mortars and stuff, or the sideboard cards, and it'd be like, eh. But he's a good thing. He definitely warrants a spot in the side deck. I got the 3 Burning Earth for Control for any 3-color deck pretty much, because with all the temples and shocklands and stuff, they're definitely going to have to think about their mana when I have a Burning Earth out. And I have 2 Destructive Revelry and Fade into Antiquity for like artifacts and enchantments. I have the Destructive Revelry in there pretty much specifically for Detention Sphere and Key Runes, just because Detention Sphere in the Control matchup's the most annoying thing in the world for me. And I had the 1 Fade into Antiquity just because I wasn't sure if I was going to be seeing any gods being played, just because this deck has 0 way to get rid of a god, and that kind of scared me a little bit, just because I don't want to lose to a Perforos burning me out or something like that. And these are kind of awkward one-ofs. I have 1 Electricity and 1 Shock. I had them both in there just because originally I was going to have 3 Shocks, and just because Shocks are really good against mana dorks and pretty much anything that has smaller creatures. But I had Electricity in there just because it was last second, and Electricity was useless. I'm not going to use it again just because nothing has 1 tough in this format, really. Like, I was playing against people, and it would be like, the only thing that they would kill is like an Elvish Mystic or a Zertod Druid, but I didn't really see any Zertod Druids out there. But Electricity, I don't like it. I don't think it's very useful at the time. I had, like, if it would have been a Shock, it would have been way more useful, just because even pinging a Planeswalker or my opponent for 2 would be more relevant than that. And then I had the 2 Peak Eruptions, which I only had 2. I may switch it up to 3, and maybe even 4, depending on what the meta is going to be looking like, just because against Black, White, Red Midrange or other Green, Red decks, the Destroy a Mountain and ping them for 3, it can be super crazy relevant, especially on, like, if you go first and play a Mystic and then they play a Sacred Foundry or something like that. Just being able to, like, destroy, like, land destruction is so powerful. And, like, I only got to use it once or twice, and once it was relevant, and the other time it was kind of like, okay, whatever, but the 3 is relevant. At the tournament, here's what I played against. Round 1, I played against Red Deck Wins, against one guy I know, and at first I thought he was playing Big Red because he didn't really play anything till turn 3, and it was a Boros Reckoner, and by that time I had some board presence in the form of, I think, like a Domri Rade and some other stuff. But I was able to win with Stormbreath Dragon just because I will take 3 repeatedly, but if I can just 4 him, that's game pretty quickly. And then game 2, I sided in thinking he was Big Red, so I put in like Ruric Thars and stuff, but they didn't really do anything for me. And I ended up winning, same thing, Stormbreath Dragon on like turn 4, I think. And he had Ash Zealot and stuff, but it wasn't really enough. So at that point I was 1-0, and then I played against another red deck, round 2. And this guy, at first, I wasn't sure what he was playing, because game 1, he didn't really have anything. Like, he whiffed on land, or, like, on creatures, and he kept, like, a 5-land, 2-something hand. And he played an Ash Zealot, and I was like, okay, Ash Zealot, I can deal with that. And then he plays a Madcap Skills, and I'm like, uh-oh, because Madcap Skills on an Ash Zealot can be pretty terrifying. But I had a Mizzium Mortar, and that quickly dispatched of that, and at that point, he was whiffing on any draw, so that pretty much gave me the win. And then game 2, he almost got me, again, with Madcap Skills, but I was able to outrace somehow. Match 3, I played against Naya Midrange, and this guy, he had a really good Naya deck with multiple Elspeths, but he didn't hit any Elspeths, luckily. But game 1, I had the bonkers hand of like turn 1 Mana Dork, turn 2 Burning-Tree, Domri Rade, and then Polukranos stuff, and I just aggroed the hell out of him, and he had like Zertod Druid, and he couldn't really do a whole lot. Game 2, I kept a questionable hand, and it was like Satyr Hedonist, Mana Dork, a Burning-Tree, land, like Ember Swallower, and he killed my Mana Dork, and it just kind of went downhill from there, because he got a Polukranos online, and I could not kill it. Like, I have problems killing Polukranoses. And then game 3, I kept him off land hardcore, because he kept a 3-land hand with multiple Mana Dorks and threats. And pretty much, because of Satyr Hedonist, I was able to overload Mizzium Mortar and just destroy his Mana Dorks. It was quite helpful. In the round 4, I played Simic Tempo, which I saw this guy playing it in like round 2, 3, and I was like, I do not want to play against that guy, just because I've played against a Prophet of Krufix junk, and if they're allowed to like untap with a Prophet of Krufix or like a Cockatrice Hydra or something, like I'm in terrible trouble. But game 1, I got mana screwed terribly. Just I kept a lackluster hand against his pretty much god draw, and I got countered and up the wazoo and whatnot. Game 2, I ended up getting a Domri countered, which that was a little bit bad for me, and I almost lost that one, but he made a slight misplay. I like triple blocked his big Scavenging Ooze, and he didn't realize that he could pump it +1 more, and I was able to take it over from there. And then game 3, he kept a kind of a shady hand, and I overloaded 3 Mizzium Mortars on him, and pretty much destroyed all of his Mana Dorks, all of his Scavenging Oozes, pretty much anything, and I was able to Stormbreath Dragon for the win. But at that point, I was 4-0, and 6 rounds, normally I can just tie in the latter 2 and do well, but I figured, whatever, and I got paired down round 5, actually, and so I had to play it out. I played against the Rakdos midrange guy, and game 1, he kept a slow hand, and I just aggroed his face in bad. And then game 2, I almost lost this one because of Desecration Demon. I don't really have a way to effectively deal with Desecration Demon, and I thought I was going to lose to it. But then I played as Xenagos, and just praying he didn't have any Lightning Strike, Dreadbore, a Hero's Downfall or anything, I just pretty much just made 2/2 Satyrs, and swung at him for 2, and then would just sack it to the Desecration Demon to keep it tapped. And I just 2'd him probably 5 or 6 times. And then it got to the point where I had another creature online in the form of like an Ember Swallower or something. And just making him tapped was like the way to do it. But the haste Satyr tokens are definitely one of my favorite things that Xenagos did for me there. Round 6, I just tied in with a guy. He was playing Red Deck Wins, and he had a interesting variant. He had like Goblin shortcutters and stuff, but we kind of played for funsies, and I won 1, he won 1. I mean, it wasn't any siding or anything, but he was a cool guy. And then going into top 8, of course, multiple people didn't want to split, because if we all want to split, we all get 5 packs and get to go home early. But no, I played against a green-red monsters like my own, and game 1, I forgot how I won, but it was kind of like he attacks, I attack, he attacks, I attack, and I was able to have more of a board presence than he did, and I eventually was able to Ghor-Clan it. And then game 2, he has a Polukranos and a Sylvan Carotid on the field, and I'm a little bit worried just because that Polukranos is going to bash my face in hardcore. And it gets down to pretty much, I had a Satyr Hedonist, and he was at 6 life, and he had a Sylvan Carotid, and I was going to lose the next turn if I didn't do anything, so I went in bluffing, kind of, and I thought he was just going to block with his Satyr, or with the Sylvan Carotid, but he ends up going for a Magma Jet on my Satyr Hedonist, and in response, I just Ghor-Clanned, and then I won, and he was like, oh... Because, like, when he did it, I was like, no blocks? And he's like, yep, no blocks. I'm like, ha, Ghor-Clan. But that was kind of close. That guy, he's not terribly good, but he does have some good decks sometimes. That was top 8. Top 4, I played against one guy. He had Boros midrange. Game 1, he had kind of a slow hand, and I was able to out-aggro him. Game 2, I let his board develop way too much. He had like Tajik, Blade of the Legion, he had Firemane Avengers, and he had that Ogre Battle Driver, and he got to the point where he can just swing in with everybody and Boros Charm and then have every battalion trigger imaginable, and there was no way I could block profitably at that point. And then game 3, he kept a somewhat questionable hand, and I was able to kill his creatures pretty much. That's what it boiled down to. I was just Mizzium Mortaring everything in sight and fighting with Domri Rade. And he played a Gideon and plussed it, but I had enough board presence just to kind of not care about Gideon and swinging for the win. And then top 2, the other guy, he's a very talented player. He didn't lose a game all night, I don't think. And he was playing green-red as well, but he had slightly more mid-rangey stuff, like Ghor Color Beast and whatnot, which actually, Ghor Color Beast is something I would like to put in this deck in the sideboard, just because if I can get that online against a control deck, I will have all the creatures I will ever need, which is fantastic. But ended up tying in top 2. We both got 8 packs, which are on hold because they ran out of Theros packs, so I get them on Wednesday. And I got the Ghor-Clan Rampager promo, which I would throw a picture up here, but it's a little bit clunky right now. But the new Ghor-Clan Rampager promo F&M thing is sweet. It's one of the coolest promos I've ever seen. I definitely recommend they check it out. But I think that's all I got for you guys right now. Definitely try out the Green-Red Monsters deck if you have the chance and the cards. It definitely did me well. I'm maybe going to try Naya Midrange next time with more mana dorks in the form of Zertaz and Sylvan Carrotids and stuff. But regardless, it's a good deck. I hope you guys enjoyed. And if you'd like to see any more of this, let me know. I always have different decks that I like to play. And if I do well at an event, normally it's more reason for me to play it more. But regardless, hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you later.